Hey guys, my name is Jimmy Davidson, and today we are looking at our new article on our website called "The First Hole Storror Can't Climb Out of, a Crisis Communication Case Study." This is on our website on motionmentors.org. It's on our blog. This is an educational piece, and it has pictures, has diagrams, has a table. So if you actually look at the article, if you're interested in really learning these concepts, the article has a lot of additional content on it. Okay, so with that, I'm just reading the article, so you're getting the whole scoop here. So let's jump in. The point of this article is to help the parkour community learn from one of the worst crises our sport has ever seen. The article points out key elements of accountability that Storror, so far, failed to take, potentially causing the victims and the greater parkour community additional unnecessary harm. The point of this article is not to turn tragedy into an entertainment piece. The first hole Storror can't climb out of, a crisis of communication case study. That name, first hole Storror can't climb out of, from a Reddit thread on the topic, which I'll refer to a few times. May 2026, shit hit the fan. In May of 2026, Callum Powell of Storror pleaded guilty to possessing and creating 3,000 indecent images of children. Allegations are now public that other members of the team knew about Callum's behavior for years and stayed quiet. Women in the parkour community, women in the parkour world are coming forward. Storror's accounts have gone dark, YouTube videos are being scrubbed, and the website redirects to the merch store. The podcast was deleted. Storror is in the middle of one of the worst PR crises in the history of our sport. This article tears down where Storror is, what they've done so far, and what the research says that they need to do to save the brand. Here is what this article is not. A moral argument that the brand is savable or should be saved. We are not advocating for Storror's survival. Children were harmed. The victims come first, always. We are using Storror as a case study because it's relevant. It's playing out in real time, and every gym owner, every parkour business owner reading this article should walk away with a crisis playbook of their own. And ideally, know what Storror was lacking that got them into this awful situation, so that you, dear listener, can do better. If we do our job correctly here, this educational article can help prevent future harm done by other organizations. What this article will cover: first, a timeline of the events; second, the mess Storror finds themselves in now; third, the core values and accountability that could have prevented all of this; four, the crisis communication framework researchers use, called SCCT. 5, the air quotes golden hour scorecard, what Storror should have done in the first 60 minutes of all this cracking. 6, the 4 things every real apology has to contain. 7, why the community is watching for one specific signal next. And lastly, 8, what you should take home as a business owner. All right, buckle in. This article goes deep. Part 1, the timeline. Here's a publicly known, pulled from court filings, official statements, the Argus, the Daily Mail, those are publications over in the UK, and the Storror's subreddit, which has some evidence, some speculation, and it's called the evidence-based mega thread. Remember, behind each one of these dates on the timeline, there's a real person who was actually harmed, and a community reeling from the news. The details below are about accountability, not spectacle. Okay, the only reason why we're going through this is so that you can see what happened and when for accountability, not as an entertainment piece. June 6, 2025, Callum Powell was reportedly arrested at an airport on a flight to Prague. The community would not learn the reason until almost a year later. March 17th, 2026, Drew releases his Truth Behind My Storror Disappearance video. This video features a voiceover from Callum sourced from the Storror podcast. Callum was reportedly also used in the Instagram Reel teasers. March 31st, 2026, Toby Seeger Sens has entered the chat. Video is released. It features Callum in his role as Storror, the podcast host. The video was later removed from listings, but is still discoverable unlisted in the Storror Sens playlist. May 7th, 2026, Callum pleads guilty in Brighton to 3 counts of making indecent images of children, possession of prohibited images of a child, possession of an extreme pornographic image. The team says that they were informed of the plea on this date, May 7th. May 9th, Storror posts its only public statement on Instagram. On May 7th, and this is what the Instagram said, on May 7th, the Storror team was made aware that Callum Powell had pleaded guilty to the offenses related to making and possessing of indecent images of children. Prior to this, the team was unaware that Callum had faced these charges. Callum has been removed from Storror with immediate effect. Out of respect for the ongoing legal proceedings, we will not comment further at this stage. May 9th and 10th. They start removing a bunch of content. YouTube videos featuring Callum are deleted in bulk. The Storror podcast, Instagram, and channels are pulled. The Storror website is stripped of bios and redirects to the merch store. The Join Plus release schedule is wiped. May 10th. Callum is removed from the Storror Pro video game. May 12th. Tim Sheaf publicly posts on Reddit. May 12th through 19th. So over the course of these days, allegations from women in the parkour community begin to surface. Multiple women report patterns of behaviors going back years. One ex-girlfriend alleges that CSAM, bad content, was discovered on Callum's phone in 2019 and reported to Storror. A second source, Kieran Fenwick, posts statements admitting that Callum's behavior was known in the inner circle for at least 8 years. He had personally saw a photo of evidence that Callum had taken pictures of minors' younger siblings in secret. He also admits he informed Storror and then continued to train with Callum afterwards. May 19th, Josh is quietly removed from the team listings on Storror's website and YouTube channel, and no public statement is given as to why. May 23rd, allegations against Josh begin to surface publicly. May 23rd, Storror deactivates its paid YouTube subscription service. And then from May 9th onward, no member of the Storror team has made any public statement that we know of. The total time elapsed since this writing, more than 2 weeks and counting, since this all broke and came forward. Okay, part 2. The first hole Storror can't climb out of. Let's name where Storror stands right now at this exact moment. The brand is on life support. The original Storror business was built on access. The whole community knew them by name. Kids worldwide watched their YouTube, parents brought their merch, and the Parkour Pro video game put their faces on millions of screens. Now, that podcast is gone. The website is gone. Most of the YouTube backlog is gone. The team is silent. Members are being removed quietly without any announcement. The brand is not just damaged, it's actively being dismantled in public. No real apology has been offered. Beyond going dark, the team has not done one thing that every research-backed crisis comms framework demands in a preventable crisis: delivering a real apology. A real apology is a statement. It's not distracting, it's not structured, it's victim-centered. It's a commitment with 4 specific elements. It has remorse, it has forbearance, it has reparations, and it has an acknowledgement of responsibility. So far, Storror has offered none of these. There have been no expression of remorse to the victims, no promise of specific verifiable changes to make this never happen again, no reparations of any kind. The May 9th Instagram posts acknowledge Callum's actions and distances the brand from him, but that is not an apology, it's a press release. This is the gap the community feels. Most of the people watching can't name the framework, but they can feel its absence. They're waiting to hear the team's story. They're waiting to see commitments to a specific change. They're waiting to know that the victims are being supported, that Callum will not benefit financially, and that the parkour community at large is being protected from this happening again. None of that has been said. None of that has been done. We'll break down exactly what a real apology looks like, element by element, in part 5. For now, just know that the silence is not just a missing statement. It's a missing apology, and the difference between those two things is the difference between a brand that might recover and one that won't. The team members appear to have been planning their exit. For months before the guilty plea became public, Drew and Toby were both launching side projects. Where's Drew? Truth Behind Storror Disappearance came out in March. Seeger Sens has entered the chat, came out at the end of March. The Reddit community has been debating whether these projects were prepared in anticipation of the fallout. The original counterargument was that both projects featured Callum in their initial uploads, suggesting nothing was being hidden. But here's the wrinkle. The Drew video had Callum's voiceover lifted from the Storror podcast, not new content. The Seeger Sends video was released 2 weeks after Callum's reported arrest on June 6th in 2025, but before the guilty plea became public. Whether the team knew anything is something only they and the courts can ultimately answer. What is undeniable is the optics. Multiple members of the Core 7 appear to have been building parallel brands not associated with Storror well before this storm hit. No leader has emerged. Look at the post-crisis communication. On Instagram on May 9th, a repost statement from Dom Tomato, a burnt book from Hazel, a statement from Tim Sheaf, and short comments from Cameron Dodds and Giles on Discord. There's no spokesperson, there's no leader, there's no plan visible to the public. Storror is a brand built on a 7-man team. Among Ben, Drew, Taylor, Sasha, Max, and Callum and Josh, Callum and Josh have been removed from the team, leaving only 5. Our assumption is that Ben or Drew would naturally now take the lead. But the silence from both and every other member is deafening. The community is watching, and the silence is being read as guilt. This is critical. We'll come back to this in the SCCT section, which is later in this article, but for now, just sit with this. Every day Storror stays dark, the community fills the vacuum with the worst possible assumptions. And that's not unfair. That's how crisis communication works. Part 3. Core values should have been in place years ago. Before we get into the frameworks of what Storror should do now, let's name what they should have had in place years ago. Because the truth is, this crisis was preventable. Not the crime itself, that was Callum's choice alone, I guess, but the years of warning signs that allegedly went undressed, that was a culture failure. The culture failures are preventable. Every gym owner, every parkour business owner reading this should pay close attention. What's described below is not theoretical. It's the foundation that separates the brand that survives a bad actor from the brand that collapses because of one. 1. Storror core values, including one about character. Storror is a brand. Brands are built on values. But there's a difference between values you put on a wall and values you actually run the company by. Storror's brand values, as the public has experienced them, because I don't personally know what their values are, have been about pushing the limits, athletic excellence, or creative content, which are all worthy things. None of them speak to how the team holds itself together. None of them speak to what kind of people are allowed in the door. A team running a youth-facing business needs at least one core value that speaks directly to the character of the people, not their skill, not their creativity, but their character. For example, at the parkour gym, Freedom in Motion, one of the 3 core values is impeccable character. It means that they hire for it, they coach to it, they fire for a lack of it. It's a non-negotiable. Any coach who can do a triple Kong but can't be trusted around children does not work for this gym. Full stop. Storror appears to have had no equivalent, or if they did, it was not enforced. When you have a clearly stated core value about character, 2 things happen. Every team member knows the line. They understand the boundaries of where your good and bad character is. Every team member has permission, even an obligation, to call out a violation without that value. 2, a culture of holding each other accountable. Stating values is the easy part. Living them is the hard part. A team of 7 people running a company together has to be willing to hold each other accountable. That means when one team member sees another doing something that violates that value, they say something. Privately first if needed, and then loudly. This is one of the hardest cultural muscles to build, especially among friends. The 7 members of Storror grew up together. They are brothers, in some cases literally brothers. When you are that close to someone, the instinct to protect them, to make excuses for them, to assume the best, to rationalize the warning signs, that instinct is what the allegations suggested happened. Years of behavior, warning signs from women in the community, a reported arrest, none of it metabolized into action. A real culture of accountability would have demanded that hard conversations happened. It would have meant that one team member sitting another down and saying, what you're doing is not okay, this has to change, and if it doesn't, we have a problem. That conversation is uncomfortable. It's the only thing that keeps a brand intact when one person starts to drift. 3. Clear boundaries for course correction. A culture of accountability needs a structure to back it up. Otherwise, it's just hoping people are brave enough in the moment. That structure looks like this. First, warning signs. A direct, private conversation. Document it, be clear about what happened, and what change must look like. Second, a written performance improvement plan with specific expectations and a timeline. The team member knows their position is at risk. The team member is removed from member-facing roles immediately. No more access to the audience, and to the kids, to the community, to the platform. And of course, for serious violations, such as the one that Callum stumbled into, termination, full removal, no second chances when children's safety is remotely involved. Criminal behavior or harm to a child, immediate removal and mandatory reporting to the authorities. Not optional, not delayed for legal review. That reporting comes first, the lawyers can come second. If Storror had any of the versions of these structures in place, the first allegation from them years ago would have triggered it. The team would have had a clear path and then had the hard conversations documenting it, deciding if the behavior was changing, if it was escalating, if it isn't, and then remove the person if the pattern continues. Or, since that was a severe violation, just remove the person. Instead, by the account now becoming public, the team allegedly closed ranks, defended Callum from a young woman who came forward, kept training with him, featured him in content, continued building the brand around him. That is the failure that is now ending the brand. The crime is Callum's, he did the thing, but the collapse is the whole team's lack of accountability. 4, a reporting channel for the community. The team itself wasn't the only group that should have had a path to raise concerns. The broader community needed one too. Women in the parkour scene had concerns about Callum's behavior for years. Some shared them with people inside Storror, some shared them with each other, some kept quiet because they didn't see a clear path, safe path, to speak up. A real brand built around public audience needs a reporting channel, not a vague DM us invitation. A named contact, a clear process, a 24-hour response standard, and a commitment to take concerns seriously even when the person raising them is not a paying customer. The community was an early warning sign for Storror. Then the team, Storror, did not listen. 5, the hard truth. This is the section every parkour gym owner, every parkour business owner should read twice. You can have a perfect crisis communication plans and still lose your brand. You can have a plan and still lose your brand. Because the only way to prevent a Storror level event is to build the culture that catches it years before it gets there. Core values about character. A team culture that demands accountability. Clear escalation paths for warning signs, a reporting channel for the community. These are the load-bearing walls. Without those, no amount of post-crisis spin can save the brand. If you run a parkour brand, do not finish this article and feel relief that you are not Storror. Finish this article and ask whether your culture would have caught it any earlier than theirs did or didn't. If the answer is, I'm not sure, then the work for you this month is creating your core values and building the structures to install accountability, starting from the foundational levels to make all of this happen for your business. Okay, and if you need any help with that, obviously we help with that, but that's not the point here. Part 4, a crisis communication case study. The framework that researchers use, the SCCT framework. Now we get to the educational core of this article. There's a well-established academic framework for handling reputational crises. It's called the Situational Crisis Communication Theory, SCCT, developed by Dr. Timothy Combs and published by the Institute for Public Relations. You can read the original framework here, and then in the article it's linked. SCCT says the responses you choose has to match the type of crisis that you're in. And there are 3 types of crises. Combs classified every reputational crisis in one of 3 buckets. The first type is victim. What it means is that the organization is a victim, the organization itself. Like there was a national disaster, there was sabotage from the inside. The next crisis type is accidental. And it means that something went wrong without intent. a major injury, or an honest mistake. And then there's the third crisis type, the preventable crisis. The organization knew or should have known, and yet they didn't act. And here is where the organization incurs maximum blame and almost no sympathy, if any at all, right? So Storror finds themselves in that one. The category you fall into determines what kind of response works. Combs' research shows that using the wrong response strategy for the wrong crisis type actually makes things worse. Here's where Storror sits. Storror's crisis is preventable, plus a history of prior warnings, plus intentional misconduct by the insiders. Suggests that the team had multiple data points over multiple years and did not act on them. And that is the worst category, worst version of this category. Combs' research found something else that matters here. A crisis hits twice as hard when there is a history of similar issues and warning signs that have gone ignored. For Storror, the reputational threat, it's maxed out. It's capped. There's no version where this is a small story. The 4 response strategies SCCT identifies. Combs identified 4 families of crisis responses, ordered from the least to the most accommodating. First is deny. Deny that the claim exists. This isn't real, we didn't do it. The next approach is diminish. Minimize responsibility. It was out of our control. The third approach that you can take to addressing a crisis is to rebuild. And that includes taking responsibility, apologize, compensate people, and commit to change. For a preventable crisis, rebuild, that one where you take responsibility, apologize, and compensate. That's the only one that really rebuilds the brand. That means apology. That means compensations for the victims. That means corrective action that is real and visible. That means leadership accountability. What Storror's current response looks like, and where does it fall in the SCCT terms? Their May 9th post does some things right. It distances, it denies prior knowledge, which I guess that actually came to bite them in the butt. And it acknowledges that they are removing Callum, so a step taken. But it stops there, way short of where it needs to be. The team is currently sitting in diminished territory. We didn't know. For what this is clearly a rebuild style situation. So they're using the diminish tactic, sorry, we didn't know, when actually they need to be using the rebuild tactic, accountability, apology, reparations, all that. This mismatch is why the community is angry. This response that Storror gave us doesn't match the crisis that they are in. Part 5, the golden hour scorecard. The Public Relations Society of America, PRSA, defines what is called the golden hour, the critical first 60 minutes after a crisis breaks, when every action shapes the outcome. Here's a scorecard against what Storror actually did. The first thing it says is ensure safety. It looks like prioritizing the victims, contacting the authorities, and stopping further harm. What Storror did, they removed Callum from the company, no public mention of victim support, no public mention of how to report further violations, no reporting line, and then there was no safeguard action, no action for how to prevent this moving forward. So they largely get a fail on did they ensure safety. Number 2, establishing a command center. That looks like a coordinated team, a designated leader, a primary spokesperson, someone to be the speaking channel for this brand. And for Storror, no spokesperson has been identified. We don't know who is currently leading the company. And statements coming from those individuals are scattered and largely absent. So this one is a full fail. Okay, the third out of the 4 is craft a holding statement. This looks like a short, careful, victim-centered statement that buys time and shows leadership. And Storror on Instagram on May 9th wrote defensively, no mention of the victims at all. So that's a fail. And then 4th, they need to communicate internally. That looks like making sure that their own team is aligned, make sure that everyone knows the plan, that the brand speaks with one voice. But Storror, Drew deleted his Instagram, Dom posted, Hazel publicly burnt a book, Tim Sheaf posted from outside the company, Cameron Dodds reposted someone else. So full fail. They haven't really taken the mantle of their own communication at all. They're letting the community fill in the void. So these 4 partial fails, all of that happened within the first hour. So Storror, they really had one job within that first couple of minutes. And they took the path of maximizing long-term damage. Why the silence is the worst part. This is where Bernstein, one of the most cited crisis communication experts of the last 30 years, comes in. Jonathan Bernstein's 10 steps of crisis communication, it puts it plainly. Nowhere does news of a crisis spread faster and more out of control than on social media. Translation, if you go dark, if you don't stop the story, if the story tells itself and other people get to write it, bad. The BC Campus Public Relations textbook in chapter 13 makes the same point even sharper. It says that during a crisis of loss of control, an audience learns about the crisis, they will quickly lay blame, even if unfairly. So silence in a crisis is not a neutral stance. Silence is part of the story. The everyday Storror stays dark. The community fills the vacuum with the assumption that the team knew, that the team protected Callum, that the team is hiding more. The assumptions might be right, it might be wrong, it does not matter. The silence is answering the public hearing. Part 6. The 4 elements of a real apology. Now let's say hypothetically, Storror wakes up tomorrow and decides to do the right thing. What does a real apology actually contain? This is not a feeling, it's a research-based structure. They identify 4 elements that determine whether the public sees an apology as actually real. Number 1 is remorse. They express genuine regret. This is not, we are saddened by recent events. This is, what happened was betrayal. Children were harmed, and we are sickened. We are sorry. And then it goes on. Direct, specific, is about the victims, not about the brand's feelings. Next, forbearance. Promise it won't happen again, but with proof. This is where most apologies fail. Saying we will do better means nothing. Forbearance means you publish specific, measurable, verifiable changes. Reparations is the 3rd one. Offer something tangible to the victims. This is the hardest part for most brands. It's also the part that matters most to the people that were harmed. For Storror, reparations could look like this. Public, on-the-record conversations with victims who choose to participate on the victim's terms, never the brand's terms, so that we can see them taking these conversations head on and we can watch them either do or do not have remorse in these conversations in real time. Financial contribution to organizations that fight abuse against children and support survivors. Organization called Stop It Now in the UK. That's like preventing child abuse, child pornography, and trafficking and stuff like that. And there's a few others that we name in the article. So if Storror pledged financial contribution to those groups, that would help. Buyback of Callum's books. We all bought his books just a few months before all this happened. If the company bought them back for us or refunded us the sales, that would be nice because it feels a little bit like a rug pull. Okay, a clear name buyback of Callum's company shares so that victims in the community know that supporting Storror doesn't also support Callum. And without knowing that, the brand is still tied to Callum. Free safeguarding training resources provided to the parkour community at large. If Storror committed some of their website, they committed some of their conversation, a lot of their conversation in the next few months to preventing this in the future, to providing free resources to the community that would show that they're actually committed to this change. Okay, next, acknowledging responsibility. Surprisingly, in the research, this one is ranked a little bit lower, not because it doesn't matter, but because saying we are responsible without remorse or forbearance or reparations, without the rest of the apology, makes it seem like it's just words. Storror's May 9th post did exactly this. Acknowledged the situation, distance from Callum, but offered no remorse to the victims, no forbearance commitments, no reparations, and that's why it landed flat. That's why the community is angry. The research predicted exactly what was going to happen. Part 7, the one person who has to now emerge. To save the brand, one person from the core 7 would need to step up and become the public faces of the response. That's not a small task. It's a 12 to 24 month commitment. Every interview, every podcast, every uncomfortable conversation, every victim meeting, every press inquiry, Every gym owner, sponsor, and fan who needs an answer, this person takes that on. The right person. This person has to have the authority to make commitments on behalf of the company. 3, they have to have the right training. Crisis communication is not normal communication. 4, willingness to take personal responsibility. Even if they didn't personally do anything wrong, they have to absorb responsibility for the brand's failures. That requires real character. Among the core 7, no obvious candidate has stepped forward. The most often named possibilities, Ben and Drew, they've stayed silent. Drew's recent move towards solo content predated the crisis. The team appears split and scattered and uncoordinated. Without one person willing to carry this for a year or more, the brand has no path. It will quietly dissolve. The members will move on with their solo projects, and Storror as a name will become a cautionary tale. Part 8. What Storror's next move will tell us. Here's what the community should watch out for. Bernstein, PRSA, and CB Campus, and Combs, all researchers I named previously, all agree on one thing, that the response window to rebuild is short. Every day of silence makes a rebuild harder. After about 30 days, the public moves on from wanting an answer to assuming the answer, and we're already 2 weeks past. The signal that says Storror is trying to recover. A named spokesperson speaks publicly with remorse, forbearance, and reparation. The team commits to specific, measurable safeguarding actions. Public engagement with victims on the victim's terms. A clear path to remove Callum's financial benefit from the company, share buyback or bad lever clauses in their articles for anyone that knows business jargon. Visible internal alignment. The whole team is speaking with one unified voice. And then engagement with Parkour Earth, USPKA, and other governing bodies. Invite these other organizations that we, the parkour community, trust to hold them accountable as well. Those are the things that if Storror does, then it's a sign that they're attempting to recover. Here are the signals that say Storror as a brand is over. Continued silence past 30 days. More quiet removals, like Josh, without explanation. Individual members launching solo brands while the main accounts stay dark. The company structure being dissolved or restructured to protect remaining members financially. A future content release, so if they just start releasing content without addressing this, with no acknowledgement of harm and no commitment to change, that would be a huge error. Every part of their response has so far been indicating that Storror is on path to dissolve. Part 9. What you take home as a parkour business owner. You are not Storror. You probably never faced a crisis of this magnitude, but you might face a similar problem. For example, Firestorm Freerunning, a parkour gym in California, recently had an ex-coach arrested for child sexual abuse. And now allegations are emerging that the gym owners and managers knew for years about the abuse, but took no action, says the allegations. We have not been able to independently verify any of those allegations. The allegations are coming from someone claiming to be a former Firestorm employee, as noted on the official Orange County of California Sheriff's social media account, which there's an image with all that on the article on our website. We point to this to make it very clear that every business needs to have core values, be vigilant, and maintain integrity, and have a culture of accountability. Not just Storror, your business too, dear listener. A coach makes a parent uncomfortable, a kid says something to their parents, a staff member is accused of misconduct, a negative review goes viral, a competitor scandal spills into you because of association. Crises happen, so be ready. According to a 2025 survey by M&C Communications, more than 70% of US business owners have no formal crisis communication plan. That means 7 out of 10 owners reading this article would handle a store scale event the same way. Don't be one of those 7. Your gym, your parkour business's crisis playbook. Build this before you need it. First, define your company's core values. Know what your company is about and what sort of people you employ. Create a culture of integrity, communication, and intolerance to anything that violates your core values. Second, identify your crisis team. Who is the lead spokesperson? Who is the legal counsel? Who is the operational lead? Who handles parent communications? Decide all that today, not in the moment when you're overwhelmed, flustered, and sweating. Know the 4 apology elements: remorse, forbearance, reparations, taking responsibility. Memorize them. When something goes wrong, the structure is already in your head. 5, build a notification system. How do you reach every key team member in 30 minutes? Email is not enough. SMS, social, a phone tree, they all matter. 6, train your team. An example of a parkour gym might be that every coach should know whom to escalate to if a parent reports a concern. Every front desk staff member should know what to do if a journalist calls. This is a 30-minute conversation at your next staff meeting. Get the right insurance, specifically abuse and molestation coverage with strong limits. We covered this in a previous blog article on motionmentors.org, all about what to do to ensure child safety. And that was our first article we put out in response to all this Storror stuff. And go read that if you haven't yet. If you don't yet have a solid plan, solid insurance, solid accountability structures, solid core values for your parkour gym, because you're child facing, most likely, you for sure need to do all that. Do not have a business that is just a factory for abuse. The bottom line: Storror's brand is on the brink. The actions of one man have shattered it. The silence of the others are finishing the job. The research is clear on what they should do and what they would have to do to save it. Emerge with one leader, take responsibility, deliver a clear apology with the 4 elements, engage with the victims, commit to specific safeguarding actions, and stay engaged for at least a year. The research is also clear on what happens if they don't. The brand dies, quietly. The members scatter. Storror becomes a cautionary tale in articles like this one. We're not advocating for their survival. Children were harmed. Victims come first, of course. Anything the company does next is for them to decide, and any forgiveness is for the affected community to grant. But we are saying this to every gym owner reading. Watch what happens next. Learn from it. Build your plan. Make sure your gym never ends up here. Silence is a choice. It's the loudest choice you can make, and right now Storror is making it. The next move will tell us whether there is any brand left to save, or only the wreckage and the long, hard work of the community to make sure that the next predator does not find a home in our support. Sources and further reading. So on the article, we linked to all of the sources that we had above, plus a couple additional ones. And one is the UF Center for Safe Sport. So this is an organization that their whole mission is to create a safe space for kids, teens, and adults, men and women, and queer folk, all to safely participate with one another in sports. And I put their phone number to their reporting line right here. So if you need to report something in your organization or near your parkour community, you can reach out to Center for Safe Sport at 833-587-7233. Okay, that's the end of the article. But if you really want to get interested in preventing this from happening in your brand, in your community, if you're interested in creating real structure for accountability, defining truly what your core values are so that everyone knows that you are inoculated from stuff like this happening that happened with Storror. And it does take work from you, the leader. It does take action from you, those of you at the top of your organization, to make it easy for people to report, to make it safe for people to come forward, and to make it public and visible that you, the leaders, are taking action to breathe life into your core values. If you're not actually holding up your core values, reminding your team about them, repeating them so often that you get sick of hearing them personally, if you're not doing that, it won't be done for you. If you're not doing that, it's just words on a page and it's not real. And the effect can be like this case study of a crisis that Storror has handed down to us. Okay, so that's the whole article with a little bit of a riff at the end. Head to motionmentors.org if you want to actually read it. You can see a lot more of the structure we had on there, and obviously, sometimes I kind of freestyled it, went off script, so you can just get the whole scoop there. It's also something you can share with your team. My name is Jimmy Davidson with Motion Mentors. Thanks for sticking around. Let's build a safer parkour community together, guys. All right, thanks.